I'll never forget that morning. It started out so ordinary. You wouldn't think history was about to be written on a cracked sidewalk in a sleepy neighborhood. A woman in uniform pulled up to the curb, engine clicking as it cooled sun, not even high enough to burn off the dew. She stepped out tall, steady, with the kind of posture that tells you she's been trained to hold the line no matter what. On her shoulder gleamed an insignia, not flashy, but sharp enough that if you knew, you knew. But to the two cops who rolled up behind her, she wasn't a soldier, wasn't a leader, wasn't anything worth respect. She was just a black woman standing where they thought she didn't belong. The doors of their cruiser swung open, slow the way predators size up prey, their hands resting heavy on their sidearms, tapping with every step like a warning. The bigger one didn't even bother with the basics, no ma'am, no ID check, no reason for stopping her. He just sneered, "What are you doing here?" His voice had that edge, the kind that doesn't wait for an answer. She said calmly, "I'm on duty." That should have ended it, but instead he leaned closer, eyes crawling over her uniform like it was a cheap Halloween costume. And then came the line that turned every head on the street. "Since when do folks like you get to wear stars on your shoulder? Or did you pick that uniform up at a flea market?" The second cop chuckled, spitting out the word cosplay like poison. A couple neighbors peered out from porches, one whispering, "I think I know her," before trailing off, too scared to finish. A kid clutched his mother's leg wide-eyed. Phone started to lift, shaky secret, but the air was already tight, heavy, like everyone knew something ugly was about to crack wide open. She didn't flinch, just stared him down, eyes calm, unyielding. That calmness infuriated him. It was like she was refusing to play his game. He shoved her against the squad car, metal biting into her back wrists. Yanked behind her, her nameplate clattered to the pavement, skidding across the dust until it landed at the curb. The cop bent, picked it up, dropped it again with a smirk, like throwing away her identity. But that's when he saw it, a small red badge tucked beneath the plate, subtle but unmistakable to anyone who had even brushed shoulders with national security. He didn't recognize it fully, but his instincts twitched. Still arrogance shouted louder than sense. "You don't belong in this neighborhood," he muttered, shoving her again. And she answered steady low, "You need to be careful with your actions." "That a threat?" the other one snapped. "No," she said, voice flat as stone. "It's a warning. Don't let ignorance drag you into something bigger than you understand." That should have made them pause, but pride doesn't stop easy. Neighbors were ordered back inside. Phones were snatched and smashed. Silence fell heavy. Then came the vibration from her chest pocket, 3 short pulses. A secure line call. U.S. Army HQ. Her warning wasn't empty. It was the last grace note before a storm. The big cop ripped the badge from her shoulder, laughed, stomped it into the ground. The plastic cracked sharp, but she didn't move, didn't beg. Blood dripped from her temple, but her eyes, steady, terrifyingly calm, made him stumble half a step back. Still anger carried him forward. He slammed her into the brick wall. She grunted, caught herself, wouldn't fall. That's when he pulled his gun, pressed it against her, hissed words that made the crowd shrink. "You think this makes you safe?" She met his stare, breath tight but controlled. "No, fabric doesn't protect me, but it should make you ask why it exists." And then bang. The shot ripped through the air, through her shoulder, blood blooming across her coat. Gasps, a scream, silence. She slumped but didn't collapse. She looked at him like she'd been expecting it all along. And in a way she had, because she wasn't just any officer. She was part of a program designed to test rotten systems, to shine light where prejudice festers. And he had just failed the final exam. That bullet didn't just hit her body, it triggered an entire protocol. In less than an hour, every feed, every server, every body cam, yes, even the ones that mysteriously malfunctioned, were locked and rerouted straight to federal systems. The cops thought they'd silenced her, but in truth, they just put themselves under a microscope that stretched all the way to Washington. By nightfall, their precinct was swarming not with local supervisors, but unmarked SUVs, federal analysts, military auditors. Files disappeared, officers were quietly escorted away. No one said the word arrest, but everyone understood. One by one, names vanished from rosters, emails bounced back, user does not exist. The silence was louder than sirens. And just when people thought she was gone, buried under red tape, she came back. Days later, rain soaking her uniform, bloodstains still visible, she stepped out of a Humvee in front of the very station where she'd been dragged, mocked, shot. She didn't need an entourage. Every step she took echoed like judgment. The officers who had laughed at her now froze behind glass doors, unable to meet her eyes. She walked straight in, dropped a black folder on the desk. The label read, "Investigation Orders, Federal Authority." Then without raising her voice, she said, "This is no longer your matter, it's ours." And the room knew the test they thought was just another day of harassment had become the kind of case that topples entire systems. Behind closed doors in Washington, footage was played her being restrained, cursed, bleeding. One congressman whispered, "We are sitting in a room that should never have existed." Daniels, yeah, that was her name, spoke finally. "I was the test and you failed. If this is how you treat someone in uniform, imagine how you treat those without one." Her words didn't thunder, but they cracked every excuse wide open. Protocols were activated, something not used since the civil rights era. Departments across the country suddenly found themselves under new scrutiny. Precincts that once laughed off complaints were ordered to hand over data or risk federal takeover, and the ripple spread beyond courtrooms and hearing rooms. Her silent stare, her refusal to break, became a lesson at police academies shown to rookies as the new standard. Instead of legal jargon, the first slide in training was her image, blood on her sleeve, eyes locked on the camera. Underneath, "I was just standing where I belonged." She never gave interviews, never sought attention. But that quiet line turned into signs at protest mottos in training halls etched on graduation badges. Even kids repeated it like the little girl who tugged her coat and said, "I want to be an officer, but I don't want to get shot." That sentence hit harder than any editorial ever could. Daniels didn't shout for justice, she embodied it. She returned to the spot where she'd fallen, buried her nameplate in the dirt, marked the ground, not with speeches, but with dust on her palms. She left behind no memorial, no parade, just a plaque with one line: "Standing your ground is also a form of resistance." And then she was gone. No press conference, no farewell. Her desk cleared, overnight status changed to assignment unknown. Some say she was sent on a classified mission. Others whisper she became the silent architect of reform. But wherever she went, the system she touched never went back to the way it was. Now her photo hangs at the National Training Academy. No caption, just her gaze angled towards sunlight, half her face shadowed. Cadets pass it daily, some pausing longer than they admit. Instructors don't explain. They just let that stare ask the question, what would you do if the system itself told you to look away? And that's the thing, her story isn't about one bullet, one cop, one day. It's about a system that failed its oath and the woman who forced it to face itself without ever raising her voice. So I'll leave you with this: if someone in uniform, trained, disciplined, respected on paper, could be dragged, mocked, and shot in broad daylight, what chance does the average person have? And if you've ever witnessed something unjust, did you speak up or did you stay silent? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, is silent survival or is it betrayal? Because Daniels already gave her answer. Now it's our turn.